Good evening. Y'all can have a seat. My name's Sarah. I'm a grateful believer in Jesus, celebrating 8.5 years clean from drugs and prostitution, and I'm still in recovery for control and anger. Hello. Welcome. I'm going to do our announcements, which are not on the screen. So this is South Cleveland Church of God. If you do not have a home church, we want to invite you to come be a part of this church. We meet every Sunday service at 10:30. We have discipleship classes at 9:30, and then on Wednesday nights we also have fellowship and prayer and connect groups. So come get involved. Pre-service prayer is in here every Thursday night from 6:15 to 6:45. So it's just a time to just come and invite the Lord to come set the atmosphere and make His presence known before we come in here. So we want to invite you to be a part of that. Victory nights. Who attends Victory nights? Every Saturday night down the road at Victory Center. It's 1401 Victory Drive Southwest. They meet every Saturday at 6 for a free meal, and then a Bible study or a lesson following that. So come join us on Saturday nights. Y'all, we need people to serve. We have a lot of leaders out tonight just for different reasons. Some ill, some on anniversary trips. Y'all want to give it up for Vicki and Russell out celebrating their anniversary. We love them. But yes, if you have a heart to serve, we want you to get involved, whether it's in hospitality and kitchen or out there greeting or setting up or taking down or cleaning up or working kids zone in the nursery, anywhere that you want to give a hand, we need you to serve. So come find a leader and talk to us, and we'll get you connected in that. New Beginnings Group. If you are first time here, I'm not going to call you out, but we want to see you down here at the front after service. My husband and I run that group. We just want to tell you what Recovery Live is about and get you plugged in. Give it up for all our newcomers tonight, y'all. Yay. Then we have our men's people group, which is right out these doors down the hall to the right. I think Rodney and Juan lead that, so they'll be out there greeting you. And then our women's people group is just out these doors down the hall straight, and I think that's Scarlett and not sure who's with her tonight. Andrea, okay? So go be involved in that, and I think that's it for our announcements. So give it up for Brian, who's going to give us a lesson tonight.
All right. How's everybody doing tonight? We doing good? Good deal. I will be as short as I can. I know Pastor Lipsy says that all the time. Praise the Lord. I knew David would say that. I just had a feeling. I am jet lagged, and I haven't been on a jet. So I don't know what it is, but since I've gotten, my dad used to tell me all the time, he's 73 roughly. I think he is 73. And so many times there'll be something going on here in Cleveland and one of our kids' birthdays, stuff like that. And he's from West Virginia, and he always says, well, I'm coming down. We're going to celebrate Levi's birthday. It's going to be an awesome time. I can't wait to be down there with you. About a week before it happens, he goes, I just can't get myself to travel anymore. I don't know what it is. He's not being mean. He just can't travel. He's just, for him, he's a West Virginia guy. He just doesn't get out of the mountains very much, and he says, y'all got people in your family like that, My dad does not travel a lot, and some of his family doesn't travel at all. Like, my county in West Virginia is so, I'm going to say backwoods, but it is. It's very isolated, very to itself, and I know I took my in-laws up to West Virginia a couple weeks ago. Actually, this past weekend, that's where I was at last week. And as I was up there, Miranda's mom and dad was speaking to my Aunt Darlene. Now, you got to understand my Aunt Darlene, okay? Everybody should have somebody like an Aunt Darlene in their life. You just don't know what she's going to say. You know what I'm saying? Anybody ever have those people in their 80s in your life that just say something and you're like, why'd you say that? What's wrong with you? I'll never forget a couple years ago, I didn't know if I was going to say this or not, but a couple years ago when my mom passed away in 2012, I remember my Aunt Darlene was sitting there, and she's not watching this. I'm sure she can't. I'm sure she can't get on Facebook or anything. It's just me, okay? But I remember I was right there by my mom's casket, and this is what pops out of her mouth. Instead of saying, hey, I'm sorry for your loss, Brian, she looks at me, and at the time I was about 400 pounds, and she goes, oh my gosh, boy, how big you going to get? Now, I am 3 feet away from my mama's casket. And so I ain't going to tell you what I thought in my head, but it wasn't godly. It wasn't holy. I had to swallow my words there for a second. But you know, we got those people in our life. And I remember when Miranda's mom and dad was sitting there, we went to a family outing, and she was sitting there, and you know, they were talking about how we went to Washington, D.C. the day before and took the kids down there and took my in-laws there. And so my mother-in-law was talking to her, and she goes, well, I haven't really been out of this county in 80-some years. And I'm sitting there thinking, man, Dad, are you talking about isolated? That is isolated. When all you know is Hardy County, West Virginia. And that's all you know, okay? So I am lagged tonight. I got back Tuesday, and I felt like I haven't been the same. I'm just exhausted. So I'm not going to take up too much of your time tonight, but I am going to speak to you for just a few moments on what I feel like God has laid on my heart tonight. You know, a couple weeks ago, we had our 10-year anniversary here. Yeah. And we have, you know, there's a lot of people out tonight. I don't know if y'all know, the flu's going around early. COVID's going around a little bit. I know some people had the flu and things like that. So I don't know what's spreading in these schools and things like that. So we got quite a few people out tonight. But tonight, we're going to be starting over our STEP series that we've been talking about every year. And I'm going to talk about this principle of the power of weakness. I don't know about you, but I don't like to admit weakness, right? I don't like to admit that there are certain things that seem to be out of my control. I want to be able to control the narrative. I want to be able to control this. I don't want to have things of the unknown. Anybody know what I'm talking about? You know, and so there are times in our life that if you want to recover from whatever you're recovering from, you're going to have to learn to lose control. And I don't mean control in a negative way. Because so many times, especially for those of you who are like me, where you struggle with addiction, part of the problem that we're in is because we try to control this thing by ourselves, right? How many of you have ever said to yourself, you know what, tomorrow's a new day. Tomorrow's not going to be like today, it's going to be a different day. Or how many of you ever went on a diet and you told yourself, yeah, there you go. See, they agree with me. You know, I got my own organist behind me, yeah. And so how many of you ever been on a diet and you say to yourself, well, tomorrow's the first of the year, so tomorrow I'm going to go on a little diet. I've been there. Been on tons of them, right? And why do we always want to say tomorrow is a good day, but today's not? What is wrong about today? If anything could be done tomorrow, it could be done today. It can be done right now. I'm one of life's biggest procrastinators. God knows I am. When I was in college, I procrastinated to the very last moment. I have written 10-page papers a day or two before the paper was due. I've been there. I know what it means to procrastinate. But in life, the more we keep pushing things to the side, pretty much what that does is it tells us that we are in control and we haven't released control to God, right? And so tonight we want to talk about this subject just for a few moments, the power of weakness, step 1. It says that we admitted that we were powerless and that our lives had become unmanageable. And the Apostle Paul said, for I have the desire to do what is good. For I have the desire to do what is good, but I cannot carry it out. Have you ever heard that phrase, well, if they just had enough willpower, they can conquer this? Can I tell you, I've worked with people in addiction for years, even before we started recovery here at South. I have been in counseling with people, and I have been in therapy with people who most of the time, those people have willpower. They have willpower. They want to change. They come to a place in their life that they really do want to change. But they come to a place, like Paul says here, for I have the desire. I have the desire to do what is good, but I cannot carry it out, Paul says. In his own strength, what he's saying is, I, Paul, within my own strength and within my own ability, I can't carry it out. So tonight, as you go into your people groups, or even if you don't go into your people groups, I want to circle around this question tonight. I want to just talk about this for a second. The question that says, what do I have control of? Think about it in your own life. What is it that you have control of? Because I guarantee you, if you sit back and just think about it for a little bit, there's very little things that we have control of. I can't control walking outside here right now and all of a sudden a big, huge thunderstorm comes, right? I can't control the fact that certain things happen in my life and I wonder why this happens and that happens. There are certain things that are out of my control. Some of you tonight are looking for closure for things in your life that may never happen. Hello? Some of you are wanting closure from a death in your family that may not happen. See, I'm a firm believer that even though there's 5 stages of grief, and one of those is closure, I really don't believe closure comes 100%. It may come, you may accept it, and believe that this is the way it's going to be, and then we can move on. But closure oftentimes never happens. And so what happens is when we try to control the narrative, there's a center ground there. There's that word again, control. Control. How many of you ever heard that term, white-knuckling life? You know? How many of us have ever tried to white-knuckle life? Even if you believe in God, even if you believe in Jesus, so many times instead of putting our faith in Jesus, we try to white-knuckle life. We try to hold on to life for dear life in our own power and our own strength instead of letting God control it. So tonight, before we get into all this, I want to, some of you, maybe you've never heard of Recovery Live or you've been here for a short time. I want to speak to you just for a moment about the lens of which we look through here in Recovery Live. And we call that the 3 Ps, right? If you've been in Recovery Live for any time, you will hear me talk about these 3 Ps of recovery. The first P is the power of recovery. In other words, this is the power of God to change your life. This is number 1. There's nothing that comes above it. It is only the power of God. This is the center of everything that we do. We believe that when you walk into a place here at Recovery Live on Thursdays, that you can encounter the presence of God to change your life. It is not Brian who's going to change your life. It is not a step that's going to change your life. Ultimately, it's going to be you submitting yourself and surrendering yourself to a God who's bigger than you. Understand that didn't say the power of you. So many times we want to be in control. We want to be on top. We want to be that person who's controlling the narrative. And the more you do that, God has no control in your life. Hello? God has no control because God is not the center of your relationship with Him. You are. And the more that you are in control, I don't know about you, the more I'm in control, my life seems to be messed up all the time. As long as I'm in control of the situation, I'm the one that's going to screw it up. And so we believe in the power of God to be able to change your life. And that power is Jesus. Now, look, you can go to a lot of recovery programs. You can go to AA, NA, and all that's great. I have no problem with AA, NA. I love AA and NA. Some of my greatest friends who are Christians who believe in Jesus go to AA and got sober there. But can I tell you in here, we will talk about Jesus. We will talk about a power that's greater than us, and that power is Jesus. Because at the end of the day, my higher power, who is Christ, died for me. He died for you. And so at the end of the day, I don't look to Him just to kind of cure my addiction. I don't look to Him to cure all my, I look to Him for because of His saving grace. Because of His saving grace of what He's done on the cross, how He saved my soul, and one day I'm making my heaven my home. It's about relationship with Him. Your higher power is not a dog. It's not a doorknob. I know I'm making some people mad. It's not that. Your higher power should always be Jesus Christ. At the end of the day, that's what matters, is him. Number two, talking about the power of people, the people of recovery. When you give your life to Jesus, one of the things that he will do is he will surround you with healthy and supportive people in your life. This month is called National Recovery Month in September. It happens every year. And I was reading a statistic today as I was preparing and I was finishing everything up. I've often wondered since 2019, right before the pandemic, I've always tracked every year what the overdose, fentanyl overdoses especially, what the number is year by year by year. In the past couple years, it has been over 100,000 people a year have died in this country, normally of a fentanyl overdose. It was over 100,000 in 2023. In 2024, it's went down to 80,000. Now, you might be saying to yourself, why did that happen? That's a 27% decrease. Well, there's a lot of things you can include there. You could talk about medications. You can talk about relapse prevention type things. You could talk about things like Celebrate Recovery, like Recovery Alive. You can talk about whatever you want to throw in there. But I'll tell you one of the biggest reasons why those numbers have decreased is because now that COVID is over, more and more people every day are being connected more. We're no longer having to stay at home. We're no longer having to be isolated. We're no longer having to stay in our cars when somebody preaches a sermon like it happened here. We are being connected again. And I believe that the more you stay connected with the right kind of people, you will begin to have a need in your life fulfilled. It's not people that are going to save you, but God will put people in your life to take you by the hand and lead you and guide you. I remember when I got sober, I mentioned this on the radio a few weeks ago. I was asked on the radio, Brian, why do you do what you do? And what I told Bridget Forrester on the radio is I said, because 20 years ago, somebody did this for me. Somebody poured into my life. A young lady by the name of Mary Beth Judy, Mary Beth Cook now, she grabbed me by the hand and she said, I'm taking you out of that drug house and I'm leading you to a place that's different than what you've been before. She began to take me to places like BCM, which was a Baptist campus ministry on the campus of Fairmont State University in West Virginia. She took me to a place called Chi Alpha, which was an Assemblies of God church college ministry. She took me to these places, and instantly I had people in my life who saw this young, suicidal, drug-addicted, alcoholic kid who didn't want to live any longer. But 2 weeks before that, I gave my life to Jesus. And I was scared to death. Anybody ever do that? It's okay, say it. If you've given your life to Jesus, it's okay to be scared. It's okay to feel uncomfortable. God is not interested in how comfortable you are. He's interested in your development. And if you just hold on for a second, if you don't get discouraged, as long as you keep God first, He's going to show up in your life and do things for you that you yourself could not do. And so what happened was she began to take me to around people who today I still talk to. When I got done from the radio, I went to work and I messaged Mary Beth and I said, hey, I know I haven't talked to you probably in 15 years. But I just got to tell you something. My life just flashed before me as I was on the radio this morning. They asked me this question. I said, I just want to say thank you. Mary Beth, you got to understand something. Mary Beth was one of those young Christian ladies who was the same age I was. She's never drank. She never did drugs. She never did any of that kind of stuff. But what she did was she took this young boy who was strung out, who was suicidal, and she said, I'm going to love on you even when you don't love yourself. I'm going to care for you even though you may not think you're lovable. And that's what she did. And that's what I told her. I said, Mary Beth, I want to thank you for loving me when I could not love myself. You know what she wrote back to me? She said, you were easy to love because I was vulnerable enough to say, I'm not perfect and I need a Savior. I was weak And I was looking for anything. I was looking for anything instead of going back to that drug house. I was looking for anything instead of grabbing that bottle again. Because I knew that in order for me to change, I needed to go places I'd never been before. I need to get introduced to people that I've never met before. Because if I kept going around the same addicts, the same dealers, the same people, you know that term, people, places, and things? If you keep going around the same kind of people, you will ultimately get what you're hanging around. If you want to be around that, you're going to get that. You know? If you want to hang around, listen to me, if you want to hang around certain kind of people in relationships with significant others, if they're running around with you, what makes you think that they're not going to run around on you? I just leave that at that. I've been there, dude. I know. And you people will go through absolute hell just to get another person to say, I love you. And what happens is you keep going through this vicious cycle over and over and over again. You're weak, my friend. And that's not negative. I'm weak. If I'm trying to lose weight and somebody comes to my work every day and shoves chocolate cake in my face, I may resist for a while. But you keep bringing another day and another day and another day. By day 5, I may indulge. I'm a chocolate cake lover. One of the things I love being in West Virginia, my family loves chocolate pies. Anybody that eat chocolate pie? The one with the meringue on the top. You know what I mean? My family makes that every gathering, every reunion. They always make those chocolate pies. And you got to eat those chocolate pies quick when it's hot outside, because that milk and that dairy will spoil inside. And boy, I tell you, I tear it up. Okay? But listen, you got to be able to have those people in your life. Bruce Alexander was a famous psychologist in Vancouver. Did a study years ago. He did a study about addiction where he talked about connection within addiction. And he did this experiment that he eventually called Rat Park. He performed this on rats, lab rats. And so what he did was he put a rat in this cage. And what he did was he put a wheel in there. He put 2 little water bottles in there. One water bottle was laced with morphine. The other water bottle was just water. And he was in there by himself, this rat. And day after day, Bruce Alexander tested to see which one of those bottles this rat was going to go to. And what he concluded was every day, this rat would drink from the regular water bottle, but then eventually, after a while, he started drinking from the bottle with the morphine in it. And he kept doing it day by day by day. And he's like, man, this is just like human beings. Why did they keep going back? Well, what is this hook that brings them back over and over and over again? So he began to change this experiment a little bit. He realized that, why don't I put some fun things in there for this rat? Why don't I put some balls and some playthings he can have and some other people, you know, other rats in his life, and have tunnels and all kinds of fun stuff, right? And he put the same thing in there. He put the water bottle with just water, the water bottle with morphine. And in that experiment, very rarely, if at all, he never hardly ever went to the one with morphine. What he concluded was it wasn't the substance that changed. It wasn't the rat that changed. What if it was his cage that changed? Think about it. What if it was the people you put in your life? What if that is what helps you to change? When you've given your life to God and you surround yourself with good, safe, and supportive people. I remember, guys, when I was just getting sober, about 2 months afterwards, I would spend time at this mom and pop place till 5 o'clock in the morning. It was called Mom's. It's in Fairmont, West Virginia. They would have karaoke there, all kinds of stuff. There was no drinking there. There was no drugs, whatever. I used to go there when I was drunk and eat biscuits and gravy. There ain't nothing going to get you sober than biscuits and gravy, okay? And I remember I would go there sober, and it was a different experience. But I would wake up in the morning, I would go home and go to sleep, and I never had to worry about a hangover. It hit me one day, about 12 o'clock when I finally woke up that day. I was young. I didn't have no bills. I was young, you know. Sometimes I wish I'd go back to those days, but sometimes I don't. And I remember I would wake up around 12. I was a young college kid. I was wondering, man, I don't have a hangover right now. I had a good time last night. My cage changed. My environment changed. What if when you give your life to Jesus, what he really wants to do is he begins to push people out of your life? He knows people that are there. Don't ever look at God and think God is doing something wrong when somebody walks out of your life. You don't know the situation of why God is doing that. Sometimes I've had people in my life who have just left me out of the blue, especially when I was getting sober. They wouldn't even talk to me, dude. Wouldn't even say nothing to me. But years later, I'd find out there's a reason why God pushed them out of my life. They weren't being mean. I wasn't being mean. They just stopped talking to me. They went another direction. And so what I'm telling you is that when you give your life to Jesus, he will begin to put people in your life. The next P is talking about the process of recovery. This may be the last P, but I promise you it ain't there. It doesn't mean that it's the last thing God's going to do in your life. Once you give your life to Jesus, he puts people in your life. Now he is going to take you on a journey of healing in your life. Can I tell you that giving your life to Jesus isn't the end story? If there's one thing that I believe that the church has missed, it's this point. We focus so much on bringing people to Jesus, and we should. And we should. But we don't talk about the mess that they've had, that they plowed through. Sometimes there's relationships they got to make amends to. Sometimes there's people in their life they got to forgive. Sometimes they got to understand there's character defects that have been in your life that you got to be able to expose and allow the Holy Spirit to expose in your life. And God is still exposing those things in my life. You're never the end product. God is always working on you. And the moment you give your life to Jesus, all of a sudden God starts doing things to you. Not to hurt you. He starts pulling things away. He starts knocking down walls. He starts kicking things out of your life. And sometimes it hurts. But he's not doing it to harm you. It's like a surgeon with a scalpel that he's just doing some kind of heart surgery on you. And he's peeling back that bitterness. He's peeling back that pride. He's peeling back that hurt that someone did to you. He's peeling back all these different layers until he gets to the very core of who you are. He's getting to the very core of humanity. Because at the end of the day, he's always wanting to bring us back to himself. God is wanting to see the real you. And oftentimes what has happened is we have put pride in the way. Sometimes we've put ourselves in the way. Recovery is messy. Recovery is messy. It's not easy. Whoever told you that giving your life to Jesus was automatically going to be peanut butter and jelly and tulips and roses lied to you. Some of the hardest things I've ever went through in my life was after I gave my life to Jesus. But here's the difference. Now I have someone who's way bigger than I am who fights my battles for me. It doesn't mean that he doesn't give me responsibility. It doesn't mean that he just does everything for me. Sometimes when God's wanting to knock a mountain out of your life, sometimes he hands you a shovel. Hello? God's not an enabler. God will begin to take things out of your life, and he'll begin to move those mountains, but sometimes he hands you the shovel too and says, get to digging, son. Get to digging, daughter, because I'm going to work this with you, and I'm going to walk along beside of you. We're going to heal this relationship. You're going to make things right with that mom, with that dad, with those kids. Recovery is about becoming more and more like Christ. And we should be at peace with everybody. And he's going to make you more and more like himself. And that's what the process of recovery is. We just finished up process groups, yeah? We're going to be starting those soon. We're going to be starting new ones. This is the process that we use. We use the Recovery Live curriculum to go through this. Listen, if you've never been through a process group, I want you to go through one. What'd you say? Go through it again. I'm in one right now, online. And so I'm not telling you things that I haven't done already. Process groups are not only bring healing into your life, but listen, we want you to serve here. Sarah talked about it. We want you leading groups. We want you to be able to, I like to have at least 4 or 5 groups going on here on Thursday night. I like to have 3 or 4 process groups going on at the same time. Because the more this ministry grows, we need more and more people, right? And so tonight, I'm just going to hit on this very quickly. When we talk about the power of weakness, I know I'm running out of time, but I just want to set the framework for this year. These 3 P's of recovery, they're in order: power, people, and process, and we leave them there in that order. We don't change them. We don't ever put process above power. We don't ever put people above power. We never put the power of God. See, what I'm afraid of is sometimes recovery ministries put the power of God on the shelf somewhere. I believe that when you walk in here on a Thursday night, you're not here to see me. You're not here to see any of our leaders. It's my hope that when you walk in here, that the Holy Spirit of God will convict your heart. Will begin to be able to tug at you to bring you closer in connection with him. And so here's what we want in Recovery Alive. Number 1, we want you to give your life to Jesus. We want you to get saved. We want you to receive salvation. Number 2, we want God to connect you with the right kind of people. You can find that here. And number 3, we believe that God's going to take you on a process journey of healing in your life. Some people call that discipleship. But it's a process of bringing healing into your life. Listen, there are people in this room today. You have been hurt by others. Other people have done things to you. You have done things to other people. And we do a thing here called a moral inventory. And in that inventory, you begin to map out everything of what people have done to you and what you've done to other people. Can I tell you that many of our issues today are relational? If you're here and you're struggling with addiction, it's relational oftentimes. Maybe because of what somebody did to you or what you did to others, right? If you're here today and you're dealing with anxiety, can I tell you, there is a neurological component of that, but can I tell you ultimately what anxiety really is control. That's what the core of anxiety is. Anxiety is that I want to be able to control. I want to control this thing. And it's not that you're trying to control it in a bad way. You're controlling it because when you don't feel like you're in control, you feel out of control. Okay? There are people in the sound of my voice that we're the most anxious people in the world here in America. Why is that? You ever thought about that for a second? We're the most medicated people in the world. I'm not against medication. I take medication. I'm not against that at all. But what happens is we are the most medicated people in the world, but yet we're the most sickest. Why is that? It's something to think about, right? And so anxiety ultimately has to do with control. So let's talk about this just for a second. I want to talk real briefly about the illusion of control. Ellen Langer, a psychology professor at Harvard University, she conducted a series of studies where she studied the aspect that people feel that they have control over things that they have no influence over and probably will never overcome. For example, she believed that she concluded that people believe that they better have a chance to win the lottery if they pick their own numbers. She also concluded that people believe that they are less likely to get into a car accident if they are the ones driving instead of being in the passenger side seat. She concluded that people believe the harder they throw a pair of dice, the higher the numbers will be. But in the grand scheme of things, it wasn't about you. You can't control all of the variables. Eventually, it's all going to crash. Listen, I don't know why God's brought this into my head, but I'm just going to speak it out. I know of people who've committed adultery on their spouse, and they try so hard to cover it up. I had a friend, and I'll close with this. I had a guy that I worked with several years ago when I was working in a summer job in West Virginia. And as I was working with him, he knew I was a Christian, and I had just been sober for maybe 6-7 months. And I was not afraid to share my story. I wasn't afraid to share my faith with him. His name was Dwayne. And country guy, had one of those curly black mullets. You know what I'm talking about? He'd wear a hat, and had that curly black mullet. And I just laughed at him all the time for it. But he was a great guy. He was a good friend for me that summer. And I remember I began to talk to him, and I found out after hearing a little bit of his story that him and his wife were working out some things in their marriage. And eventually I found out what that was, and he told me, he said, about 1.5 years ago, my wife caught me. I said, what are you talking about? She caught me having an affair. And I thought that I had everything under control until I didn't. And everything came crashing down. Let me tell you how it came crashing down for him. Almost every morning, he would meet with this woman before work. This woman worked with him as well. And also his wife worked with him as well. That complicates things, huh? And so he's having this affair with his wife with a woman who he works with. Now, understand, this is a town of 2,500 people. Things get around, Word starts spreading. But that's not what happened to him. One day he was coming home from the store or wherever he was, and he pulls into the driveway, and he notices that there's a car there that he recognizes. And he's like, oh, man. Pulls into the house, walks in, and there on the couch is the woman he's having an affair with, and beside of her is his wife. His wife says, come here, I need you to sit down in between us. She said, today, the one woman said, today you need to choose who you want to be with. Your wife that you've been married to for 20 years, you got 3 girls, her both still in elementary school and middle school, or me. He chose very wisely his wife. But can I tell you that everything came crashing down for him? Everything that he tried to protect, every secret he tried to keep, eventually came crashing down. You guys play some music for me. Today, maybe you're right there where Paul is. Maybe you have the desire to do what is good, but tonight you cannot carry it out. What is it tonight that you're trying so desperately to try to control? Because can I tell you, my friend, if you try to have secrets in your life, you're only as sick as your secrets. And there's people walking around in our churches every day, people walking around in our streets at our job who are living secrets. Where I work at, there are secrets with people's lives. There's affairs that have happened in my work. There's things that have happened that I know about. And these people are married. There's kids involved. And they think that everything's under control. Because you see, you may have gotten away with it this time, and you may get away with it the next time. But eventually what happens is you go down this trail and you believe this lie in your head, I got everything under control. And for some of us, it's a thrill knowing that you didn't get caught. But can I tell you, eventually, you're only as sick as your secrets. What is happening inside of here, listen to me, stand with me. What is happening inside of your heart, what is happening in here and what's happening in here will eventually come out here. Your life in the secret will eventually be brought out to the light. Eventually. You may be able to keep it that way for a while. Then all of a sudden you begin to lose things. All of a sudden families are ruined. You begin to have emotional problems. Maybe you begin to lose your job. You begin to lose your resources. Your family wants nothing to do with you now. Maybe you end up doing things where you end up going back to jail. And it's just one thing after another that just happens. And it keeps happening and it keeps happening. Can I tell you, in step one, the biggest thing you can do is just let go.